Welcome to the October 2023 OpenZFS leadership meeting. We have the conference coming up just next week. So look forward to seeing at least a few of you then. There's still some tickets available, so if you know of other folks who are interested in attending, please let them know, encourage them to register. Not anything on the agenda, so open mic. What would folks like to discuss? Alexander, I saw your message to me on Slack about the workload where I saw that problem. I have not been able to look into that yet, but I will plan to.
Yeah, I'm now trying to recall. I remember I answered that, trying to recall to what problem.
Yeah,
I just
it was the, let's see, big transactions for small record size writes change that you made. And then I was saying that there's a performance regression due to like changing between WR indirect versus WR copied, I think.
Yeah, I ran some experiments after that, trying to find some threshold or any logic, but it's not exactly clear what's best to do. So I saw just if I'm using two small blocks, then writing them to slog, it's pretty slow because we're trying to write them sequentially on one VDEV, and they could aggregate potentially, but problem before aggregation starts, we should send like 10 of them, but 10 of them would be like, even if it's 8 kilobyte, it would be 80 kilobyte write. So it's practically we would need to restrict indirect writes to something big like 80 kilobytes or even more kilobytes. But then, no, and I was thinking about that, but it would be maybe it just making decision between indirect write and normal copyrights should be made later, not at that stage, but somewhere when we actually starting commit, not on the write stage, but on the commit stage. The difference is critical when we start doing like a lot of writes then commit, like a flush, not like sync always style of writes, but just writes intermixed with commits. So we may have a lot of small writes, but then we commit them all together, and then we have a chance to aggregate them.
So in that case, were you thinking that if that happens, then you would not use indirect and you would put them all into like one big, like 128K log block?
Like if I could postpone decision to commit stage, then at commit stage I could see, okay, I have a lot of small blocks, but as soon as I'm committing totally like 15 megabytes of data or whatever, even if it's small block, let's just do indirects.
Okay, I see. So you're saying like use indirect for the small blocks if you have a big batch, because you have a lot of data, and hopefully all those allocations of those small blocks will be contiguous.
They will end up contiguous thanks to allocator, allocating space like sequentially, and we'll get aggregation after that. But problems that each individual write within that commit may be too small to actually make any decision, and definitely too small to say that let's indirect that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But just moving that to later stage, maybe quite a bit of change.
Yeah, I don't know.
From one side, I actually implemented it's been there. I just edited it. I already implemented sort of log records editing in place. For example, when I need to write a big copy block, like a big neat copy, I start splitting that transaction into several smaller transactions, so that each smaller transaction could fit it into its individual log block. And then when all of them committed, I'll send commit confirmation. So I already translate one ITX into multiple ITXs. And so maybe we could do something like that for the handling of writes. So we always write into memory some small ATX for just writing. Just write this range, whatever it is, small, big, no matter what. We don't make decision immediately. But later, when we start committing, we see, okay, this range is pretty big, or our transaction is generally big. We are committing something huge. And at that stage, we may make decision, okay, let's do it in direct because we're already committing n megabytes.
Yeah. I wonder, I mean, I guess I have to check and see like what decisions do we make based on indirect versus not, like that early on. I would think that once I think we could wait, like you're saying. We just have to, I mean, they take up different amounts of space in the log block, right? So you couldn't assign them to a log block until you make the decision, but you could see like how many do I have pending and then make the decision and then fill them into log blocks.
We could assign, the distribution between log blocks happened at the commit stage. At that stage, we already know the commit size. Current code doesn't do it, but I have draft PR and trying to solve different issue. And in that patch, I actually, in the beginning of commit stage, going through all the chain of ATXs, I calculate total size so that I could allocate blocks properly in advance. So that logic could be reused here. Okay, we are writing X amount of data. It's probably big enough to make sense to commit it as indirect. Let's convert all the normal range writes into indirects.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Question how to do it not too messy, but yeah, it should be doable. Otherwise, meanwhile, I was thinking whether to add like one line hack, just replicating the whole logic in ZFS. If that helps you immediately, I'm not opposing that. Like, I was thinking you actually gonna commit that, since you.
Yeah, like I think it would. I just like got distracted by other stuff. But yeah, I think that probably doing like the zvol hack thing would probably be fine for our use case.
It's a bit ugly to use the same threshold for both. Not same.
We could add another one
for both.
Yeah, we could add another tunable for the zvols. That'd be fine.
No, I'm not about zvol versus ZFS. It's just one. It's not logical to use same threshold for block size and for write size. It should be two different thresholds.
Oh, I see. All right.
So and using two different, it makes it just messy and complicated. Like it has to be done all the way. So meanwhile, like same zvol hack is probably better than nothing, but it's not good generally.
Yeah. Cool.
Speaking about ZIL, I created a patch a few days ago, trying to bring some logic into ZIL writing, because there are two different concepts now. One is called sync, where we differentiate sync versus async records in memory in that list of ATXs to commit. Yeah, async it's a one that is still waiting for explicit commit for that file, but not affecting anything else. Yeah, muted.
Yeah, sorry, my son has off today and he's like yelling at me to help him with something that I can't do right now.
Okay, and second, that's a one flag sync versus async, and the second flag we are passing to the write function, log write function, is that commit versus non-commit is optimization whether we should use immediate copy versus need copy. And I try to refactor that so that we don't flip between sync and async too often without need, so that we sync only when the file is opened with osync. Because if we try to switch between sync and async too often, we may reorder writes and corrupt the data. It doesn't look like it's too difficult patch, but I don't know whom to ask to look into it. It's pretty old code.
Yeah. Has George looked at any of these? George Wilson?
So I may ping him. I don't think he responded to it otherwise.
Yeah, I might need to ping him. I mean, we could see if Prakash could take a look at it. He worked on the Zilla, a while back. I don't think he's done anything on it in several years. But he might be another good candidate. Other topics?
Added boss to reviewers. We'll see.
Yeah. If there's no topics, we might have a short meeting today. I think a lot of attendees had other conference, a lot of folks couldn't make it today. And that's fine. We're gonna have lots of ZFS content next week. And we will be trying to live stream it. It's going to be a DIY situation like we've done for the hackathon in past years. So I should be able to get that working as well as we did in past years.
Matt, I have a super quick one from a production user call.
Sure.
The wiki's quite good, but any and all resources for where to get started with OpenZFS development are appreciated. Maybe an example piece of code that has some supplanting paper or conference talk or video or blog or something. So we can talk about that next week, but just want to plant that seed.
Yeah, I think folks have, in terms of like finding interesting code, so there's kind of two parts of your question. I think one is like, what are the mechanics of like, how do I check out the code and then make a change and compile it and get it on my machine? I think there's probably okay documentation on that. Although if not, like that's relatively straightforward to write up. The other is like, what should I look at? Like, what code is interesting here? Because there's a lot of it, and
it's
like,
big.
give me a map.
Exactly.
I think people with that question have gotten some use out of the lecture I did on like ZFS read and write code paths. There's a video of it on YouTube.
Okay.
And it's like it's like literally like the first maybe 20 minutes is like overview with some block diagrams of like here's the different layers, and then there's like 2 or 3 hours of like just looking at code. So I just have like all the code on a screen, like on a giant projector behind me, and I'm like going through each of the layers of like when you do a read, like first it goes to this layer and it checks this thing, then it goes to that layer and it determines that thing. And it kind of goes all the way down through like the ZPL, the DMU, the SPA, the ZIO pipeline. So at least for the read and write code paths, I think that's a good resource.
That sounds great because it has that sort of structured approach. So I'll take a look and get back to you next week.
Cool.
In person. Cool. Thank you.
I actually did that. That was for Kirk McCusick. Like he has a class on I guess FreeBSD internals, and he asked me to do those lectures on ZFS.
Even better. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, if not, then I'll see a bunch of you next week. Looking forward to it.